Welcome to another DragonLance Saga Dungeon Mastering 101 episode. It is Palast, Yurthgreen the 27th. My name is Adam, and today we are tackling a concept that separates the game engine DMs from the storyteller DMs. Now, we've all had that moment. A player asks us to do something wild, and your instinct is to say no, to protect the encounter. But no shuts down the game. Yes, and can sometimes make the game feel too easy. The sweet spot, the place where the best stories happen, is the yes, but. It's the art of granting success while demanding a toll. All right, so we're going to dive into that. I would like to take a moment and thank the DL Saga YouTube members and Patreon patrons and invite you to consider becoming a member or patron. You can even pick up Dragonlance Media or get $10 signing up to start playing .games using my affiliate links in the description below. Now, before I go on, I do want to give you guys an update on the anthology that I've been putting together. Yeah, it's still a thing. It's still being done. The anthology itself, the book, is done. It's ready to be distributed. We have the PDF done. We have the ebook done. Right now, all the art's done and everything. It's 100% wrapped. Right now, I'm waiting on finishing out the audiobook. So I'm working on the audiobook version. I think there's like 11 or 12 stories. I've got 2 of them in a can. So I've got, 9 to 10 more stories to narrate. As soon as I'm done with that, I'll be releasing the entire thing for free for anyone because, again, most of these stories are fan fiction. Some of them are original IP stories, and those, are just really great high fantasy stories. But some of them are fan fiction, which means we cannot sell them, obviously, legal repercussions there. So we're just going to give them away for free. And again, it's just like posting a fan fiction story on a blog or sending it out to a newsletter or something when there was alt Dragonlance. This is just a bunch of fans celebrating our favorite campaign settings or our own original stories in a very creative way. So we hope you guys dig it and enjoy it once it's ready to be released. I'm expecting like 2 weeks at the most. We should be good. So look forward to that. All right, let's dive into tonight's episode here. First thing I want to talk about is the philosophy of yes, but. Now, yes, but is not a negation of success. It is the complication of success. So it validates the player agency, meaning they get to do what they wanted to do. It maintains the world's danger, meaning that there's some sort of cost, i.e., you're not just letting them do whatever they want, you're adding in consequence to their actions. And it creates hooks for future encounters. So the consequence becomes the next problem. This is shared storytelling 101. It is built in my opinion, to just TTRPGs in general. And it's something that if you're not doing it now, you are in danger of railroading players, 1, stifling their creativity and imagination, 2, and possibly dooming your own campaigns in the process, 3. So there's got to be shared storytelling. That's the whole point of TTRPGs, and that's where the yes, but comes into play. So the second thing I wanted to talk about was where yes, but lives. Use this tool when players have a great idea that should work, but 1, it bypasses a challenge you wanted to keep tense. 2, the world is too realistic for free success. And 3, the outcome needs to ripple into the future story. This comes into play in every game I have ever run, where a player's like, hey, can I do this? And I have to think for a second, like, there's no reason why they can't do that. But by letting them do that without, just carte blanche, it either flies in the face of a rule, or it's going to open up doors for future rules to be broken, or it's going to put them in a position of more power over their fellow players, or it just allows them to get through the scenario that we're dealing with in the moment without any consequences at all. And you cannot have that. The whole purpose of the game is that there are consequences for actions, sometimes good, most often bad, and in some cases, just problematic. More steps that you have to go over. And that's not a negative or a draw. That's by design. That's what this game's all about. That's why we have dice, to be the adjudicator of those conflicts. And I mean, they're conflict resolution tools. That's what dice are. So the yes, but is really the dungeon master's footing in saying, I want to allow you authority, but I want to maintain some world sharing integrity. So you're going to get to do what you want to do, but there's going to be consequences when you succeed or fail based on that success or failure. So something to consider, for example, is a player saying, I don't want to worship this god anymore because it seems too restrictive in what I want to do during the gameplay. No problem. But once you lose your god, you lose all your powers. So yes, you can forsake your god, but there's not like a line of gods waiting outside of your tent, waiting to offer you a role or a position. You're going to have to find a god, prove that you're valuable to them, and then maybe they'll take you on. In some cases, you're going to have to go to a temple and do service for that god before they start granting you spells. If you're a paladin and you start changing your alignment, yeah, you can do that. You can murder innocent people, but there's consequences. So no matter what it is, whether it's good or bad, always err on the side of, one, you need to make sure the player understands the gravity of what they're asking. So that's going to require you to follow up with them. I hear what you're saying. Is this what you're asking me? Because these are a series of potential repercussions because of that. And if they still say yes, say, okay, you can do it. But again, you're going to have some sort of complication because of it. That ripples out in the story because where they were in their narrative has just dramatically changed. And now they have to find out where they're going to be next. That's fun if you love storytelling, which hopefully if you're a dungeon master, you do. But for players, it can have a little bit of growing pains involved and they might get frustrated. And so that's why I think it's so important for you as the dungeon master to be clear. Now, this also comes into play a lot when you have players that expect the game to be easy because they've played easy games before. And again, I 100% blame 5th edition for this issue, where and arguably it started in 3rd edition, you're setting up encounters, presumably, that the players can overcome. You're using CRs to build encounters with the assumption that the players are going to overcome them. But if you're operating in a shared universe, in a shared world, that's not how it works. Sometimes you just stumble upon a dragon's lair, or there's a series of griffins overhead and your heroes' horses look pretty tasty. You don't always get to choose whether or not something is easy or difficult when you run across it in an open shared world scenario, especially in Dragonlance. So you can't pretend that everything you come across is something that, one, you're supposed to storm right over, or two, you're even capable of it. This is where, in my opinion, old school gamers really, really shine. They know to prod a little bit, to figure out if this is actually something that they should be doing at all or not. Proceed with caution and GTFO if things turn south. Newer players don't, or at least 5th edition players in general, don't seem to really understand that because I think they're just not presented with the game in that way. I don't think it's their fault. I'm not saying it's a negative about them, just that the game system itself is designed to be way too easy for players. And that's just not how I roll, and that's not how a lot of DMs I know roll. And if that's how you do it, that's okay. Everyone's different, right? So that's where it's important to have that yes, but with clarification on the DM's part. Are you sure you want to go into that dragon's lair? It's probably not a youngling, like a brand new hatchling. You know, you might be walking into a dragon's lair and have to face off against a dragon. And maybe you've faced them before in other games, but let me just tell you, it's not a joke. You could die, like for real. All right, so the next thing I wanted to talk about was the different types of butts. You could really take a lot of my sound bites from this episode and just put them out of context entirely with the whole conversation on butts. So when you say yes, add one of these three weights to the back end of that yes. The cost of resources. For example, yes, you can pick that masterwork lock, but you'll break your best set of thieves tools in the process. The cost of time. Yes, you can charm the guard, but it takes long enough that the other patrols have already begun their rotation. And the last one that I was going to give an example of is the cost of reputation or narrative. Yes, you can defeat the assassin in the tavern, but everyone saw you do it, and now you're wanted for murder in Solace. So we always have to remember that there are always consequences to the world, and that is by design because the players then feel invested as part of the world. The actions they take have repercussions in the world. But that also means that every choice they make has some form of repercussion, no matter how small or how grand, right? And it's important for the dungeon masters to ensure that this stuff follows them, because you could have bounty hunters hired for player characters that came in the town and just caused a big ruckus and maybe murdered a couple peoples and then went on to the next town to do the same. Well, now the locals are upset and they want to hire someone to go hunt them down. Your heroes may think you're good heroes, but the people you leave in your wake may not agree with that assumption, and they might send good heroes out after you. So always think about this. I ran into situations where players are going into towns, into taverns, and just kicking and punching until they see red, and there seems to be no real consequence because of that. In my games, there is always consequence. Either you're going to be run out of town, the law is going to try to apprehend you, and if you run or damage the law, then that's going to go to a wider regional law enforcement situation. Ultimately, it could end in an entire nation having you as a wanted poster in every major town center so that every fledgling hero is coming after you. So if you're operating a law and order type universe, make sure that those consequences are in place. The cost of resources, this is something that I always bring up, especially with old school dungeon crawling. When you're searching an area for secret doors or for treasure, that takes time. It's not just something where you do a quick glance. That's not searching. Searching takes poking and prodding and lifting and opening and upending and going, knocking on walls and trying to find secret doors, and then you got to find the latches for the doors. And it's not a process that you just do quickly. It's something that takes time. And if there's other living entities in that dungeon, someone might just stumble across you while you're doing that. It's the same thing if you're listening. They say the cost of resources. If you're listening at every single door and searching for traps and checking to see if it's locked at every single door, that is a safe way to play. But if you do that, it takes time, which means random monster encounters, other denizens there hearing you and alert to your presence, now preparing for when you come through the door. I mean, it's just, I don't think most people consider the greater repercussions of their actions until you as the dungeon master remind them of them. For example, another example, battle. There is no such thing as silent fighting. It just doesn't happen. Now, your players may not vocalize to each other during play, which I think they should personally, but I go to my great lengths to vocalize the monsters because they're either going to be calling for help, trying to disparage the heroes in order to bring their morale down, or if their morale is dropped, the enemy's morale, then they're going to try to give up and maybe try to lead the heroes astray into more danger rather than just give up all the secrets of whatever they know. There's always going to be some sort of time, resource, or narrative consequence for your actions in every single game, and playing those up is part of the fun. At least I would like to think so. Hey, Engine Joe, how you doing? Heavy research into Calaman, nice. Yeah, that Gilthana's novel had a whole lot about him and Sylvar and Calaman after the War of the Lance. and then even after that point. All right, so the next thing I wanted to talk about was guarding the challenge pillar. So if you have a dungeon crawl where every door is magically locked and the players just yes and their way through them, the exploration pillar dies. So the people that love exploring no longer have that as a love because they're not getting to really do it. They're just storming through everything. The but forces players to make more decisions. Do they risk the tools? Do they risk the noise? Do they try a different path? You aren't taking away their success by adding the but in there. You're actually giving them meaningful choices to consider. And again, that means immersion. And if your players are genuinely debating courses of action, that means they're invested in the world and the game that they're playing. And that is a good thing. So the next thing I want to talk about here is yes, but as a narrative engine. So in Dragonlance, the heroes are often defined by their scars. Yes, you can save the refugees from a burning village, but you have to leave your supply wagon behind. This creates a hero who has lost something, making their ultimate victory feel earned. Yes, but is the engine of heroic tragedy. You always have to have some form of a sacrifice to truly have some form of glory. And let's just be honest as far as like traveling is concerned. If you're riding horses and you get to a dungeon, what are you going to do with the horses? You can't bring them into the dungeon. You got to tie them up and hope that no griffins, trolls, ogres, goblins, mercenaries, bandits, random people just happening through the woods then take your horses. You can't guarantee that they're going to be safe because you don't have a guard associated with them at the moment, right? So there's always built-in inherent consequences to everything that you do, and ensuring that, yes, you can leave your horses outside, but that means they're going to be vulnerable, forces the players to think, okay, well, maybe if we just go in at like 20 minutes at a time, come back out and make sure, maybe we booby trap the area, or, it forces them to consider. Then, if they lose their horses, how are they going to get back to town with all that treasure they found in the dungeon? And especially if it's Dragonlance, you want them to feel like they're having earth-shattering moments. When the heroes of the Lance were sunk in the Blood Sea of Istar and woke up in sunken Istar, they literally abandoned their entire life in the hopes that they could get away from Kitiara, and the environment ended up crashing them. Well, actually, it was Barum that ended up crashing them, but they thought they were dead. They woke up and they had to figure out a way to get out of there. It didn't end up all great. Raceland popped smoke, and him doing that caused significant tension amongst him and all the heroes for later on, justifiably so. So every single decision a character makes has some sort of grander narrative that will then apply to that character later on. Using that as a tool, especially as a Dungeon Master, especially in a Dragonlance game, means that players are going to become more and more invested in the storytelling. All right, so the next thing is how to present it without sounding adversarial, because there is a built-in general adversarial nature when it comes to a dungeon master making rulings against what the players expect the ruling to be. That's why consistency is so important, right? Just look back to my Dragons of Despair campaign we finished last week, where there was a number of times when players were like, no, that's not how the spell is, and I make a clarification or a correction, or I declare that this is how it's going to go. And there is contention there. There is an adversarial nature whenever you are overruling a player. It's your right as a DM to do so, but it is inherent with that action. So it all comes down to the delivery, to minimize that adversarial tone and nature. Because ultimately, we want to remember, these are new or old friends sitting around a table, physically or virtually, just to have some fun. That's it. So keep that in mind. So here's the bad example. Fine, you can do it, but you take 10 damage. In that case, it feels like a penalty, right? Just the delivery, the answer, the reaction with the damage. I mean, all of it sounds pretty negative. Here's a good way of doing it. That's a brilliant plan. You absolutely pull it off. However, because you're moving so quickly, you don't notice the alarm tripwire until it's too late. What do? You see how it turns it around. It's the exact same reaction at the end. The exact same outcome, but the approach is entirely different. One is shutting down a player, and the other is encouraging the player. So the difference between this is that you're framing the but as a result of the world, not a punishment from the DM. Always remember, the yes but is the world's consequence, not you shutting down the player because they tried to do something you didn't want them to do. That's not how this works. All right, so the last segment I wanted to cover here was the DM101 mindset of it all, the fair complication. Players rarely resent a but if the complication makes sense. They resent it if it feels like you're cheating them out of a victory. Always make sure that the but is visible, logical, and inevitable. So no matter what course of action they would have taken, they still would have had to deal with a but you're not presenting it in a way that it's punishing them or somehow squashing their desire to be creative or, show a little ingenuity. Don't be afraid to let your players win, is really what it comes down to. It's important for them to have those moments. Just make sure that every win is a story worth telling. Yes, but turns a boring check, pass, or fail game into a dramatic saga. And it's not about stopping them. It's about making them earn their place in history. All right? And that's really all I wanted to cover when it came to yes, but. I know we've talked about it in passing before, but I figured we might as well have a full episode where we're just highlighting the importance of it, how to properly use it, and really what it's meant to do. And that is solve a problem. All of these Dungeon Mastering 101 episodes are intended to solve a problem that the Dungeon Master and or players are faced with every single session. And we can correct all of them just by framing and having a little bit of background in the situations as Dungeon Masters. I think it's really important to share tips and tricks, share ideas and experiences, and ultimately stories with each other so that we can just ultimately become better at what we do. Better players, better dungeon masters, and ultimately have more fun together. That's it. All right. Hey, Kim, how you doing? Renaud. I totally butchered your name. I apologize. Thanks for tuning in. Trying to delve into more unknown places of Dragonlance. Nice. Well, you're in the right place for that. There's only one trilogy of books and one brief series of DC comics that deal with Taladas. And there's 3 modules and 1 starter module that's very, very brief. So there's not a whole lot of information on Taladas. That's one of the reasons why I'm doing all these weekly episodes for Taladas, is to help fill in those gaps, because I think it's a great place to play in. And it's a great offset balance to Ansalon. Ansalon, we feel like we already know all the history and everything. Taladas is pretty mysterious to a lot of people. So learning a little bit more about it is really, really great in my opinion. Hey, Vorna, how you doing? You're having your players hit Ergoth today, and boy, do you gotta make a beacon. Ergoth, that's a good one. Depends on the era, on how, nationalistic or imperial it is, or how destroyed the ruins are, depending on when you're doing it. But lots of political intrigue and drama with Ergoth, post-war, pre-Brulades. Oh, that's nice. That's a good time. It's a really good time. All right. Let's see. Tons of books on Taladas. Well, I don't know about tons. Someone asked you about Soth. If Soth is chasing you, a door will not stop him. No. No, it will not. And he has an incredible amount of powers. If you look at the Advanced Dungeons & Dragons stats for Soth and his equipment stats, I mean, if a Dungeon Master wants to make him invulnerable, you can. Like, literally. And by design. He's not meant to be something that is just walked through by adventurers. He's meant to be a real force of nature. And when you approach him, or when he approaches you, you need to role play that effort and that just the reality of it, the gravity of it all. So yeah, I've never actually played a whole lot in Ergoth myself. Read a whole lot about it, of course, throughout, the years and stuff, but go in the mountains of Hylo, Eastern Ergoth. Yeah, there's a lot of different tribes. There's a lot of different monsters in that era all around the region. And before the 5th Age, there's a lot to explore because there's remnant citizens of Qualamori and Silvamori there when they migrated to Southern Ergoth. The Kaganesty, of course, are there. A lot of their youth was sort of turned and adopted toward the Qualamnesty and Sylvanesty lifestyles, and that kind of pissed off a lot of the older people. You have a lot of heritage and ancient ruins and, undisclosed area in that whole northern and southern and all of the disparate islands all around. I mean, it's a really good place to explore. I mean, just all sorts of cool history that you can either just make up whole cloth or rely exclusively on materials. But good luck with that. That sounds awesome. All right, that is it for this episode of Dungeon Mastering 101. What's the most creative yes but moment you've ever had at your table? Feel free to email me at info@dealsaga.com or leave a comment below. I would like to take a moment and invite you to subscribe to this YouTube channel, ring the bell to get notified about upcoming videos, and click the like button. It all goes to help other Dragonlance fans learn about this channel and its content. This channel is all about celebrating the wonderful world of the Dragonlance Saga. Thank you so much for joining in that celebration. Until next time, my name's Adam with DragonLance Saga. Slán Javar.